Hi, I'm Tracy. Welcome back to Love Your Shelf. It is October. I'm so excited. It is my birth month and it's Halloween month. So today I decided to be a unicorn and talk to you about young adult series books. So, yeah, let's dig into it. Renegades? Arch Enemies Supernova is the third one. And it is about a bunch of superheroes, but there's a lot of different political things that are going on as far as, and there's enemies, there's arch anarchists is what they're called, and then there's also the renegades, which think that they're doing like great things, and potentially they are doing great things, but there's two sides to every story, you know what I mean? So Nova is part of the anarchists, and she tries to essentially tear down the renegades from the inside out, and it's really cool because first off, I really like the character building in this. The characters that they set up is really good. But secondly, I also love how different some of the superheroes' powers are. So like for instance, there's this one superhero who bleeds rubies, which why would that be a good superhero power? And you get to find out. So it's pretty cool. It uses a lot of really great imagination. It's by Marissa Meyer, who also wrote Cinder and that series, the Lunar series, Lunar Chronicles is what it's called, which I haven't read yet, but it is on my list to read next year because I read this, and this series was hands down like one of my most favorite things I've read this year so far. So I'm pretty excited to get into her more popular series, but I definitely urge you to take a look at her not as widely celebrated series yet. It's shorter for one, and it's just a really good, easy, fun, action-packed read. The next books I want to talk to you about are the Scythe Trilogy. So with the Scythe Trilogy, we have Scythe, of course, that's the first book, and then we have Thunderhead, and then the last one we have The Toll. Can we talk about how annoying it is that these came in paperback and you can't find this in paperback to save your life? Like, I love paperback way more. Everyone's different, but what I don't love is having half of a series in paperback and half in not paperback, and then having to re-buy the series to get it all together. Like, that's not fun. Let's not do that. But regardless of that, this is by Neal Shusterman. Let me show you his full name, Neal Shusterman. And he is absolutely incredible. So he also wrote a book I read called Challenger Deep, which is an amazing book as well, but we're not here to talk about that. So let's talk about Scythe, Thunderhead, and The Toll. So these books are essentially about what it's like if the world didn't have death, in the sense that people die because of sickness. So it gets rid of sickness, essentially, and it makes it so that there are people called scythes who determine who's going to live, like who's going to die and when. And they don't call them death, they call them gleanings. And you follow, essentially, this scythe, well, a woman who's becoming a scythe named Anastasia. It's her whole journey. And then they add essentially different characters throughout that help her through that journey. And it's just an incredible book. Like, there's definitely things I didn't see coming along each aspect of it, and I definitely think that if you have time, you should pick up Scythe, Thunderhead, The Toll. The Thunderhead is a security AI system that watches everything. So essentially he's like playing God, and he has a really pivotal role later on. They also, in the second and third book, I think it's just the third book, introduce a gender fluid character whom I also love. So it gives a lot, it has a lot for everyone. And then there's also obviously a scythe who takes advantage of gleanings and has his own aspirations built into his scythedom. So that's very interesting as well. The next young adult series I'm going to talk about isn't like a series, it's a duology. So I started reading this at the beginning of this year, and the second one finally came out. I actually read Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson. I got it for my birthday last year, and I didn't know that the second book hadn't come out yet. And it wraps up really well. And then there's like a 2-paragraph epilogue, and I hate epilogues, and this book reminded me why, because it wrapped up really well, and then there was like a 2-paragraph epilogue that was like, oh my god, I need to read the next book, and it didn't come out until May or June or something like that. So I finally got it, and I finished it. Vow of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. It's really good. You follow Jace and also Kazi and enemies to lovers trope, but which I'm not normally super into, but it's actually a really good book. They're both written really well, so definitely Dance of Thieves, Duology. The first one's about just over 500, and the Vow of Thieves is just under 500, so altogether it's about 1,000 pages of like just a really good story. So pick it up if you have time. The next books I want to talk about are books I have not read in a very long time. But I still think about them all the time anyway, and it is the Clockwork Angel series, the Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. It's a Shadowhunter series, and full disclosure, I haven't read her other City of Bones series yet, but I probably should do that sometime. But I'm just so in love with Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess that I don't know if I would enjoy it as much. So because of that, I haven't picked up City of Bones, but I do have Clockwork Angel. So this follows Tessa, who has a lot of paranormal things going on with her. I'm not going to tell you about them, but she also has a love triangle. And this is the book I originally read that I thought was going to talk about polyamory and bringing that in, but it did not. So that was disappointing, but it still did something pretty cool. And this is just an incredible book. And it also introduces, originally, Bane. There's a fourth book, the Bane Chronicles, that kind of goes with it because it introduces a character called Bane, who's a warlock, and he's one of my favorite literary characters, or was, in this series. And then I tried to read the Bane Chronicles, but Cassandra Clare, does it with other people, and it's just not the same. So I DNF'd it for right now, but I'm gonna follow up and do a DNF December later on, which you guys will hear about eventually, I'm sure. So yeah, we'll go back to that. But Tessa, Will, and Jem, they're these 3 characters that are just incredibly well written. Cassandra Clare has an amazing imagination. She opens up an entirely wonderful world, and I'm here for it. So definitely pick it up, especially if you like City of Bones and you didn't read these Infernal Devices series. Please do. It's incredible. So the next 3 series that I'm going to talk about are different, because I feel like so far the series that we've talked about are series that people haven't really heard about, or that are new, like Dance of Thieves or Vow of Thieves, or they're under the radar because they're not the most popular series from the people, like the authors, or I don't really know where Neil Shusterman's Scythe goes into that, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, and they should, because it's an incredible series. So now I'm going to talk about series that I think people have probably heard of. I'm gonna leave Hunger Games out because I know that everyone has seen it or read it, I hope. But I will talk about Hunger Games really quick, just to tell you that Hunger Games is the only book that I read. The very first book, I stayed up all night reading it. I got done at 7 in the morning, and then I literally waited for this is before I did audibles and stuff. I waited for the bookstore to open so that I could go get the second book, and then dove right into that. So Hunger Games, always good if you haven't read it and you've only seen the movies. I saw the first 2 movies, but kind of like the third book is the least best book. I don't know, the first book is the best for sure, I will say that. And they are really good books, so yes. The next books I'm going to talk about are the Maze Runner series. So it's the Maze Runner, and then Scorch Trials, the Death Cure, and the Kill Order. And the Kill Order is kind of an add-on book, so it originally was the first 3 series. It's by James Dashner, and James Dashner does a lot of really awesome things as well. I think he did Eye of Minds, which I started. I really want to read the 13th Reality, so all of those are young adult books that he's done. I started Eye of Minds, but I haven't finished it yet, and I do plan on doing that someday because it was still good too. So The Maze Runner is the first book. Essentially, it's dystopian. It's about these kids who are all boys in the first book. And they're in this crazy ass maze and they can't get out of it, and it's creepy. It's like a nightmarish maze for sure. Very labyrinthy, but like a million times worse, like Pan's Labyrinth crazy, or worse actually. So they're in this maze, they finally get out of it, and then the Scorch Trials happen. So like, it's not just a maze, there's a lot of other things going on. They have really good character development because it's about a team. It's about being team players, and how these people work together, and it just keeps going. Kind of like The Good Place, if you've seen The Good Place, and then like you find out some stuff and you're like, well, what are you going to do the second season? Guess what? They figure it out, and so does James Dashner with the Scorch Trials, and then after that, the Death Cure, and then also we have the Kill Order. So all 4 of these books are really good, and I definitely recommend them. I also can't not talk about Rick Riordan, because his Lightning Thief, like Demigod series is where it's at. They are coming out, I think, with like this series, they're coming out with a show. The movie wasn't great. It was interesting. I mean, Pierce Brosnan as a centaur is something I didn't think I wanted in my life, and it's not something I hate, so there's that. But these books are incredible. I could not put them down. We have the Lightning Thief 1, the second one is Sea of Monsters, the third one is Titan's Curse, the fourth one is Battle of the Labyrinth, and the fifth one is The Last Olympian. And then I have this book that I borrowed from my niece and nephew that I haven't given back yet, called Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Demigod Files, and it talks about like each person as well. So Percy Jackson finds out that he's a demigod. He is the son of a god, and his mom is a regular human, and all these gods are trying to kill him because of who he is, and he ends up going to a demigod camp. Half-Bloods is what they call him, and it's an amazing series. He defeats Cyclops. Well, he doesn't defeat him. He meets Cyclops and goes through that. He takes on Titans with his girlfriend. So yeah, it's a lot of really fun times, and you should definitely, if you've not read these and you're into Greek mythology, I would say read them. They're incredible. And then last but not least, I had this series, but I don't have it now, and I'm sad. Eventually I'll get it back, I'm sure, but I can't not talk about Divergent. And I know that the movies came out. Everyone's probably seen them. I haven't seen the third one or the second one yet, but they weren't bad. So Veronica Roth is a really amazing author. I recently read another book that she wrote called The Chosen Ones, and it's really good. And she just came out with a book called The Poster Girl this month that sounds amazing as well. So it is going on to my to be read next year. So I'm very excited about that. But we can't not talk about Divergent. So there's different factions: Amity, Candor, Dauntless. There's one other one. I can't think of what it is right now, but I'm definitely Candor. And it's just an incredible series. What I love, and there is a spoiler, so if you have not read it or seen the movie, like, fast forward 10 seconds. But what I love is that Veronica Roth kills her main character. She does something nobody else does. Most people like keep them alive and doped up for a while, or like onto some different path of love, because essentially like that's how it's all written. But she just straight up doesn't do that. And I love that. And the courage that she had to do that at the end of her book is what made me be like, I'm gonna read everything this person ever writes for the rest of eternity, and I'm working on that. So definitely Divergent is an incredible dystopian series as well, that I can't not mention when we're talking about young adult books. So those are some young adult series that I want to talk to you about today. I hope that I mentioned something that you've read and that you love, and I hope I've mentioned something that you haven't read and that you find it and that you love it. If you have other ones that I haven't mentioned, like put them in here. I want to hear them. Maybe I haven't read them, and it would be awesome to get those series. Also, if you have read the Lunar Chronicles or City of Bones and you think that that's something I would enjoy as well, leave me some comments about it. Thank you so much for joining me here on Love at Your Shelf. I hope that you have a great magical October. Namaste.